Hello and welcome to another episode of Forever Great in Conversation at Home. I'm delighted to be joined with Annabelle Beckwith, but before we have our conversation, let me just tell you a bit about Annabelle. Annabelle's been working with people of all walks of life since her early career. Petrol pump attendant at 15, daytime TV at the BBC after graduating, an MP researcher, various roles in PR and marketing, head of development and public affairs at the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, and for the last 20 years, business training, coaching and consultancy has taken Annabelle all over the world. She has written and been quoted in various online publications, including Ariana, Huffington's Thrive Global, a great platform, entrepreneur.com and Forbes Online, amongst various others. She lives in gorgeous Ayrshire with her 2 children, drinks loads of tea and likes to travel. And the big thing is what we're going to chat about today. It's all significant, but she is about to publish her very own book called Get Your P's in a Row, Annabelle.
Yep. 5 key factors to propel your business forward. Yep, that's it.
It sounds great, and it's great to have you on Forever Great Conversation. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, well, thanks for having me. Thanks for inviting me, Frank. It's good to be here.
So for anyone watching on YouTube, it's great to have you, and for everyone listening on the podcast, again, it's great to have the download. Annabelle, before we get right into this conversation, share with us what's lockdown been like for you. I'm struggling to say the word lockdown because it's been so long, but how's it been for you?
Do you know what? It's been okay, actually, for a couple of reasons. I quite often find myself working from home. I have an office locally, as you know, but I work from home quite a lot. So that whole kind of cultural shift to the whole working from home thing hasn't been, I'm not in alien territory, I don't feel. And I'm self-isolating with my 2 adult children, which I'm actually really enjoying, because normally they're out with their friends and, you know, they don't take too much notice of me. But I really feel that, it sounds a bit naff really, but I feel like I've got to understand them and know them on a deeper level.
Good.
Partially because we're kind of forced together into this situation. But it really has, I've really sort of come to realise that they're not just my children, they're actually genuinely lovely young people. So I've actually, there's aspects of it that I've quite enjoyed. Yeah, there's some of the boring things where you can't go out and do things that you would want to, or, you know, there's certain shops that you can't go to and things that you can't get hold of and so on. But overall, I think I can't help feeling that any situation is what you make it.
Exactly, and I'm sure you've consumed plenty of tea during that time anyway.
Sorry?
I'm sure you've consumed plenty of tea during the lockdown.
Yes, I have. I've got through several hundred tea bags, I think.
So
make sure there's a stash in the cupboard. Exactly.
Let's talk about the book. So thank you so much for sending me through the synopsis and the chapter. I found them fascinating. Before we started to record, I shared with you that I obviously read them in detail, and I've managed to create loads of questions that I want to put forward. We'll unfortunately not be able to get them all across today, but we'll jump into some of them. I want to just chat with you first and foremost, Annabelle, that though, when did you realise you've been doing work or working with people, as we've just said, for a long time, and you've been supporting business for 20 years? When did you realise the book was something that you wanted to do?
Probably about 18 months ago, where it started to occur to me that not only has I seen a load of patterns in businesses and working as a consultant and a trainer, you just see so many patterns, you start to realise, actually, this is a principle. This works everywhere. And so I started to use those principles in my own work with clients. And then I thought to myself, oh yeah, what if I wrote a book? And I think one of the reasons it took me so long is at that point, imposter syndrome descended with a vengeance. And whilst on one hand I could look at what was happening with my clients and the conversation I was having, and they were getting results, they were recognizing the value of this approach. In my head there was a voice saying, who do you think you are? Who's going to listen to you? And all of that kind of stuff. So I have to say it wasn't just a question of, oh, I realized that I had some book-worthy material here, so I wrote it. I didn't. That's why it took so long. And it was literally only at the turn of last year that I thought, right, I just need to decide now, am I going to do this or not? And the thing that really galvanized me into action was actually booking before I'd finished the book, booking a date in with a proofreader, because I thought, right, I've got to finish it by then now. So it was almost like forcing myself to a deadline. So it's been a gradual process. It wasn't like waking up one morning and thinking, eureka. It was like, yeah, I think this is this is something to write about, and then the imposter syndrome. But now, as your very kind comments, and I've had content editors as well, spoken about the principles to a number of people. So I've kind of overcome the imposter syndrome piece now, and it's like, this is going to help a lot of business owners, not just who are growing and scaling up, but actually who are looking to the future, coming out of this whole COVID-19 scenario, where we are looking to redefine the new normal, because it's not going to be like it was before, and there are certain things that we can do moving forward into that time. So this book actually provides a thinking structure that will help with that as well.
And that's what I really liked about the parts that I was lucky enough to have a good read through, Annabelle, was that the kind of refreshing thing from it wasn't one of these particularly business heavy theoretical books. It felt like it was you telling a story on, look, I've been doing this for some time now, and here's some kind of quick wins based under the framework of the 5 principles. But it was if I was reading, here's some quick things to be doing and looking at in order to get somewhere quicker. Was that the kind of idea you had of the offset of this, that you wanted to be something that people could pick up some quick wins quickly?
Yeah, very much so. And I think it'll also depend very much where the person's at when they're reading it, because there's going to be various parts where people will think, yeah, I kind of know that's what I'm doing, which is great. It's a confirmation of best practice. It might be that somebody's thinking, I had a hunch that was the case. I sort of knew it, but now I see it in front of me. It's crystallized in a different way. Or it might be something that's completely new to somebody. So either which way, the whole point is precisely as you say, is to help people save time and time, money and stress, basically, because if you're working along a particular avenue, or you're wrestling with a particular problem, I would like to think I'm the person tapping you on the shoulder and saying, here, if you think about this first, that whole knot that you're trying to untangle, that's going to just unravel by itself, because actually the thing's over here. So it is absolutely about, don't guess your way through it. Here are a set of thinking principles that will help you think your way through it in a more structured way, rather than getting bogged down in the same old, in the day-to-day, in the stuff that just clouds our thinking most of the time, actually, for all of us.
What I really thought was refreshing about the tone and the narrative you used, or the introduction, was the fact that the first of the 5 principles is about, it's personal, it's about you. So it's about the reader really looking at themselves. And I felt that was a kind of change to these normal kind of books, where that is straight into, do you have a business plan? Why did you decide to have the first principle as being about you, about being personal?
About the individual? Well, that's Frank, it's one of those things that, as you say, having worked all over the place and seen these principles in so many different contexts, that was one of the things that has jumped out at me from the very outset, is that the inner work comes first. And it doesn't matter whether you're an entrepreneur in a startup mode, or somebody who's looking for investment or to take your business to the next stage, an executive within a larger organization, the CEO of a global corporate, the inner work comes first. And just seen that in so many different facets, I just believe it to be true. And the second thing is, from an entrepreneur and a business owner point of view, I have sadly over the years seen many people who have almost got caught up in what they think is expected of entrepreneurship, because we do here, do we not? There's a lot of stuff going around about what you have to sacrifice for your business, what you have to sacrifice as an entrepreneur, and it's, well, yeah, sometimes you do, but be really clear what you will not sacrifice. Don't be the person who kind of reaches the finish line, a sort of a blooded mess, completely stressed out, with a wife who doesn't speak to them anymore, and kids who hardly know who they hardly know. You know, don't throw the wrong things under the bus. So for me, that was a critical thing for putting that first, is self-awareness, and the inner work comes first in every single situation, but also from the point of view of entrepreneurs and business owners, who are the backbone of the economy. do it for you. Create a business that's right for you, that's going to sustain and fulfill you, not one that's going to suck you dry and you know, chew you up and leave you a tattered wreck at the end of it. And I feel really, really strongly about that it's not just about reaching the financial goals or achieving what you said in the business plan. It's absolutely about the journey that you travel along the way and the quality of that journey.
And that absolutely came across in abundance, Annabelle, because what I found from the chapter again was that there was 5 or 6 different things that you gave us around draw a rectangle, put circles in it, put in your where you spend most of your time. Here's a grid with about 50 values you also illustrate as well. Select your values. So what I quite liked about it is, I didn't quite like, what I really enjoyed about it was that you were providing a toolkit along the way. It wasn't just, here's loads of narrative, work it out. It was like, take the time to kind of go away and work on this. Why do you think, and let's just talk about values and goals, why do you think some of the entrepreneurs that you've worked with over these years struggle to identify their own values? They can talk about values for the business, about maybe innovation, about authenticity, about customer care. We've heard it all. Why do you think some entrepreneurs or business leaders struggle to identify or allow themselves to look at their own values?
I think it's something that we don't really talk about, do we? Or if we do, and this is why at this particular point, actually at all points, but the brutal honesty is required, is because if we think about our values, we just tend to think of them in abstracts, like, trust, honesty, authenticity, you know, some of the catchwords, which if we sit and look at them, they are deep. They are meaningful, but as we use them as throwaway terms, it's not actually telling us very much. So it is about sitting and thinking about actually what are my values and being honest about that. So it's not just going to be the lovely things, you know, the things that everybody aspires to and thinks are worthy and noble. It might be something like, well, one of my values is winning, or being recognized by other people, or achievement, or, you know, or something, whether that's a value per se, but something that really drives me is not just wanting to, you know, bring about world peace and all the rest of it. It's actually this as well. And that's okay. That may or may not be something that in due course, when you start to move down the P's and look at your purpose and your strategy, that may or may not translate into your business. But it's really crucial to identify that is there. Yeah. If you're not aware of it, and it is something like, I really like to win, then a little bit later on, you'll have to watch out, because that in some way that's going to leak out within your business. And it's some of those things that perhaps aren't quite so positive, or we choose to see them as not quite so positive. Those can come back and bite you on the backside within your business if it becomes part of your culture. So this is why we're looking at the personal first and foremost, because again, especially with entrepreneurs and founder-led businesses, is the character of the entrepreneur will absolutely govern the culture and the nature of that early stage business every single time. So it's self-awareness is really, really crucial at that point. And it's not something, as I say, it's not something we typically think about.
And like you, Annabelle, I've seen that. I've seen that in so many situations with entrepreneurs where their values, whether they see it or not, their own intrinsic values are actually dictating. Sometimes in a really good, positive way.
Yeah.
A lot of times, not the case. And what I love, and no one, if you're listening, you'll not can see this, but I'm pointing up to the camera the values grid that Annabelle has got, and what I did with this was I looked at it and thought more around, what do I value? What do I value in terms of a person? And I put down things like fun, connection, creativity, love, results. And it made me think about, actually, no, be really honest, what is it that I value? And I think what I loved about this chapter in the book is that I hope when people get their hands on it, they take the time to really think about what they value. Because when I then looked at, well, what do I then value? That's what I value personally. But actually, I value them in my business as well.
Yeah.
So there is a connection.
There is a connection. Yeah, absolutely.
So I thought that section was really, really, really powerful. One of the things I got from a lot of it was clarity. You talk a lot about clarity around it. Why did you So why was clarity the word, Annabelle, and what is it that you found over the years working with companies that you felt that, is it been lack of clarity for some people? Is it a lack of clarity based on where they are as an individual or where they are going as a business? Or is it a bit of everything mingled together?
Do you know, it's one of those things. I mean, to my mind, clarity is critical, because typically we haven't got things absolutely straight in our heads. We've got kind of like a rough idea. And there are business owners that I've worked with, when I say, right, okay, so tell me about where do you see yourself in 5 years' time, whatever it is, one or two occasions, they have literally tapped their forehead and gone, well, it's all in here. You think, well, that lot of good is in there when you're leading a team forward. So the key point there is sometimes we have a rough idea of what's going on and where we want to go. We don't have a clear idea. And where this really, really starts to become problematic is where you have a leadership team. And it's like, if they're not absolutely on the same page, it's like four horses, let's imagine, four horses pulling an old-fashioned carriage, but the horses are all going in different directions. The whole thing, the wheels are going to come off, basically. And you see this quite a lot as well, because people will use the same language, they'll use the same jargon. Oh, I value authenticity, but everybody will have their own interpretation of that. So how these things are communicated and articulated must also be crystal clear. So, for example, there was a team I was working with, and the senior management team, when they spoke about their aspirations for the business, they were all using the same sort of language: build the business to an optimum size and be the company of choice for within the marketplace and things like this. So on the face of it, it looked like everybody had clarity and consistency about where they were going. When you actually got under the skin of it and said, well, what do you mean by building the business to an optimum level? There were significant differences between what that meant to one person and what that meant to another, which is why it's really important to have crystal clarity in our own mind. And the second point is to communicate clearly. Because if it's not clear in our own minds and we don't have it articulated clearly, written down as a statement or something of that sort, when we come to communicate it to other people, it's just going to become a bit waffly. And the further down your organization that slightly waffly message goes, the more and more diluted it's going to become. Yeah. And that's going to cause problems further down the line, because people won't be connected to your purpose and your strategy and what's going, because they haven't got clarity on it, because nor do you. And so that's what it's like as a central and pivotal point to start with.
Yeah, very much so. And what I felt around even having this conversation right now is as a society, as a globe, we're looking for clarity. So there's so many different connections and synergy with business, life, being a human. Right now, we're looking for clarity, and I think what the book coming out in the coming weeks is that it will give people that opportunity to sit down and really think about, where are we now? Not where were we last November? Where are we now going into June? Because things have drastically changed quite quickly. All over.
Absolutely, and it is very much so about having clarity about where we're moving to, but also I would suggest looking at what was happening last November, what was happening 18 months ago, because as we move forward, change isn't just about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. It's going to be a matter of, let's look at pre-COVID, whatever. What did we have? What are the strengths there that we can leverage moving forward? What do we need to learn? So where do we need to change and pivot? And what do we need to leave behind because it no longer serves us? And that again is now, as you say, at this particular point in time, everything's kind of ground to a bit of a standstill. Now is actually an opportunity to think about these things, where when we were racing at it at 100 miles an hour, we didn't have time to think about these things that were actually central to ourselves as business owners and business leaders, or to our businesses themselves. Now's an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, now's a time to pick up this book when it comes out, and start with looking at the first P, which is the personal, because I honestly think as well, we'll all have our long-term values, but I do think over this lockdown, people will have been experimenting with allowing themselves to experience different values.
That's a really good point, Frank. A really good point.
And I think that's something that I really, the book made me think, the part that I read made me think, and I get excited about everyone else thinking that way, to think, actually, no, I'm thinking different today than I would have if I had read this last year. So that's what I thought was really refreshing about it. So great. Let's move on from that and talk very briefly, Annabelle, about the others. So the other key areas are purpose, people, process, and
Paradigms. Yeah.
where is it again? I've not got it.
Paradigms is the
paradigms. Beg your pardon. Paradigms. So paradigms. What are the, very briefly, we've obviously spent most of the time on the first one because I wanted to, because it's one that I read and I felt it was relevant. But very briefly, give us a kind of brief overview of the other core areas and what they're about.
So from the personal section, always all about the business leader as a human being, we move on to the purpose. And this is where the rest of them is where we focus on the business. So what's the purpose of the vision? What's of the business? What's the vision and mission? How does that cascade down into an overall strategy, functional strategies, your sales, your marketing, your finance, whatever, and into individual goals? So it's taking it from the macro right down to, what is it that people are doing day to day? Because also recognizing that people don't want to know just the what and the how, they want to be connected to the why. And we can see this with employees and recruitment and with customers and buying choices and so on now. That why is really important. The next one is around people. So with a growing business, who have you got on board? Where are they within the business? Does your current structure serve you into the future? It's probably going to have to change in terms of business delivery, working from home, people are gone, people will be, that's all kind of up in the air. So what might it be moving forward? And also a little bit about, and here are some key things about knowing and understanding and leading your people. From there, we look at processes, and to what extent are your processes supporting your people to deliver on your purpose and strategy that meets your personal life goals? You can see where we're going here and everything built and everything else. Also recognizing that there's a people side of process. So it's not just about set it and forget it. If people aren't bought into the process and invested in it, they probably won't, or they don't understand why it's there, they probably won't do it. They'll do whatever's easiest for them. And the final P, paradigms, is all about the culture that underpins and supports all of these, because it's, as they say, culture eats strategy for breakfast. And whilst culture is often seen as one of these big fluffy things, how on earth do we, there are very practical things that you can be doing within your business that will drive your culture forward. So we look at some of those.
I'm glad we worked out what the fifth one was. You didn't need to work out. I had to work out paradigms, Annabelle. But what I wanted to touch on very briefly with that, because time is ticking, is you were one of the people that mentioned this to me a good couple of years ago when we had a good chat around culture isn't what you say it is. It's actually what it is.
Yes.
It was something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things that I've taken away from our conversations over the years, is that, and I think of that often when I'm in working with businesses. Isn't that sign, that beautiful big vinyl on the board or within the staff handbook? It's actually what you feel and sense when you're in there.
Yes.
Over all the years you've worked in various global organisations. Give us an example of a real strong sense of culture. You don't need to name the business, but a real strong sense of culture that you've found, and how it made you feel as someone who was external going in to deliver a workshop. There have been
companies that do this really well, and there's been companies that make a genuine effort to build their culture and to live it. It's not just a poster on the wall. At the other end of the spectrum, there's been some clients where it's just, it's wallpaper, frankly, because what's happening day to day is absolutely toxic. But we're not here to talk about those. So where it does work, you see a combination of different factors. The key things are that leaders will role model what they expect to see other people doing. And you see that everywhere. There tends to be a culture of giving feedback to each other. So whether that's like 360s, where everybody gets a say on, your performance and how you come across to them. They're genuinely endeavouring to bring about a culture of open communication, and their whole performance management structure is geared not just towards getting results. Obviously, that's going to be a key aim there, but also the way in which they get those results. So if somebody's getting fantastic results, but they're bullying their team, people are lodging grievances against them, everyone's off sick, then there is a recognition that actually those behaviours are not appropriate to the business. They are against that business's values. and that person it's not going to be, oh, they're getting great results, so it doesn't matter. It does matter.
Yeah.
And it's where the business actually follow through and what they say their culture is in a practical way. That's where it lands. Where there's a slight wavering and somebody's bringing in the money, so it doesn't matter what they're like, then people become cynical about the culture. And if they become cynical about the culture, they become cynical about the brand, because the brand is very much the external iteration, and the culture internally has to mirror that brand. Once you start to get cynicism within the business, then that's going to lead to lack of motivation, lack of morale. It's not going to be great. There's going to be negative consequences for your business.
It's got multiplier effects. It's like a domino effect, isn't it? If it's not right.
It is. And it spirals out of control. And by the time you notice that something's gone wrong, you're in a right mess. And it's fixable, but it's going to take a heck of a lot more effort, and it's going to take longer to try and address that.
So Annabelle, you know as well as I do, I could speak to you the whole day.
We said we'd be watching the clock, Frank, otherwise we'd be rabbiting on till midnight.
About entrepreneurship, about business, about development, about culture. You're a wealth of knowledge, and I'm so excited and I'm delighted you've managed to really take this story of yours and put it pen to paper and gift us with this incredible book. Get your P's in a row, 5 key factors to propel your business forward. When's it out and where can we buy it?
So it will be out on July the 7th. That is the launch date. A website is in production at the moment. If you're on Facebook, I do have a Facebook page that is entitled Get Your P's in a Row, 5 Key Factors to Propel Your Business Forward, which is kind of the stopgap where I'm posting bits and pieces. And obviously I'm going to be posting, you're not going to hear me shut up about this on social media widely when the website is up, and that's when you can pre-order books. And there's going to be some bonuses in there as well. So some downloadable worksheets, a growth readiness checklist, which is much more about not the journey ahead, but helping you focus and think about where exactly are you now, and some other bits and pieces as well to just to support you in your business journey.
So available July the 7th
on Amazon, and available online. Super. But it's an actual book, yeah.
Yeah, it's an actual book. We want the physical thing here. We want to highlight on it. We want to. We don't want this.
Kindle as well, but yeah.
This is a book you want to touch and feel. So we've got we'll always ask these final 3 questions, Annabelle, before we let the guest go.
Yeah.
And the first question is, where is your favourite place to visit in Scotland?
It's just down the coast, Frank. It's Dunure on the Ayrshire coast. And I'm not the first person to have said that. I absolutely love it there because it's a really rugged bit of coastline. There's like a little pub and a few houses, old fishing houses, I suppose they must have been, and a wee harbour there, and rocks going out to sea. And then there's this really dramatic ruined castle jutting out at the cliffside. And I'm such a history geek, so there's so much history around that castle. It fascinates me, but also the beach itself. It's, how interesting am I? History geek, and I also like rocks. So there's such a variety of geological specimens on that particular beach. There's agates, there's quartz, there's jasper, there's all sorts of things. And I really find it quite therapeutic to just go along and be looking for something in particular, and just the sound of the sea. And so it's my peaceful place. I absolutely love going there.
So is that a kind of subtle hint, Annabelle, that we should expect book 2 to be?
Book 2, rock hunting, coastline of Ayrshire, something like that. Yeah.
Dunure and Ayrshire, beautiful. Second question: What quote is it? You're a person who I'd imagine have several quotes that inspire you.
Yeah.
What's the one that you go back to for perspective, or to put you back on track potentially? Maybe even when you were writing your book and maybe struggling sometimes, did you have a quote that got you through?
Yeah, can I have 2, Frank? Because I was trying to narrow it down. So one is, and I think it's by an American writer called Muriel Strode, but it's, do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead to where there is no path and leave a trail.
Well remembered, Annabelle.
And I think, I love it. And that's one, it's on my phone. I look at it all the time because for me, that's really important, is to leave a trail for particularly young people. Like my kids are young adults, leave a trail for somebody else to follow. And the other one, which I think is relevant to writing the book, or just like business, perhaps business in the current environment particularly, is in the battle between the rock and the stream wins, not by strength, but by perseverance.
Wow.
And that always strikes me as, yeah, okay, it's just consistent moving forward. So both of those, but the rock and the stream one was one that did come to mind when I was writing my book, I must say.
Excellent. Love both of them. And a couple of minutes in terms of the one that I like as well. I like them all, the 3 questions, but is the inspiration. I think more than ever now, I've always been a fan of inspiring people. We've had several conversations about these things over the years when we were together in Entrepreneurial Spark. But you know yourself, Annabelle, it's so important to have people who you can be inspired by. Who's the person or the individuals in your lifetime, or indeed now, have been the inspirations that you've looked up to?
Well, there have been many. I mean, many people actually in my life who have been inspirational, but like 2 that I think that really stand out. One from history geek, and one from the current day. From the current day, for me, it has to be Jacinda Ardern, the Prime Minister of New Zealand. I think the way that she's conducted herself and the way that she has embodied this blend of compassionate leadership has been a beacon of hope within New Zealand and actually around the world. And I think that is truly inspiring. And the way that she herself says that she's been criticised for being too empathetic, but she says, no, this is, in her own phrase, she rebels against that, and you can be an empathetic leader, you can be a compassionate leader. So I think she's an absolute inspiration in our current times. Historically, I'm really inspired by Queen Elizabeth I, because I think she survived in a man's world. You know, it could have gone, she could literally have got the chop at any moment. And that pivotal moment where the Spanish Armada is coming across the channel, and she's standing there on Tilbury Hill and saying to her troops, I may have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king. And that leadership of her people at that pivotal point, and the fact that her government advisors had said to her, listen, Scarpa, just go to France. And she said, no, I have resolved to live or die amongst you all. And for me, that's a real show of leadership, that I have resolved to live or die amongst you all, is standing with her people. And I think, again, in these current times, there is this huge thing about we have to all stand together. Leaders have to stand with their people. Otherwise we aren't going to get through.
Here. And what I like about that is the New Zealand's Prime Minister, I'm absolutely there with. And I think that what we're seeing is that different styles. I think people have this idea that your style needs to be your style all the time. The potential is a style that you're more natural at, or that you're more comfortable with. But as a leader in a global situation where we are right now, you have to adapt the style to bravery, to compassion, and have you seen that very quickly, Annabelle? Have you seen that with different organisations over the years? Strong leaders are easily able to adapt.
Well, yes, and it's an interesting thing because they're not fundamentally changing who they are. If their values will stay the same, if they're clear on their values, you will see that this is who that, cut them in half like a stick of rock, and this is what it says in the middle, their values. But they also have the wisdom to respond appropriately to the situation. It's not a one-size-fits-all or cookie-cutter approach. They have the wisdom, and they've surrounded themselves with able leaders as well. So it's not like there's one person in isolation trying to drive these things forward. They know when to lead from the front. They know when to collaborate. They know when to leverage the strengths of other people to figure out the best way forward. It's a combination of the two, that flexibility of style and being true to who they are and their own values.
So I love that in terms of flexibility of style. It's a nice way to put it. It's actually a really nice way to put that in terms of leadership styles. It's not just a style, it's the flexibility of styles. It's been able to be different things at different times, but still being true to yourself and delivering it in a way that's authentic to you. Not if you're not a naturally compassionate person, trying to put that on, but you can still be compassionate.
Yes. Well, yes, because we're human beings, and there are people who will say, I don't do the touchy-feely stuff. Well, no, you don't, but you're maybe not in the workplace, but let's imagine you're still capable of holding down a relationship or social friendships or whatever in life outside work.
Absolutely.
We're not asking for high fives and group hugs here. We're just asking for an extension of how you already engage with people as human beings, asking for a little bit of that in the workplace.
Well, Annabelle, I'd have loved to have this conversation in the Forever Great studio, so I could have just showed that and gave you a cuddle and gave you a high five. that can't happen. We are doing this remotely. We're taking advantage of digitization. We're still making it happen. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being part of Forever Great Conversation. I genuinely appreciate it. You're an absolute wealth of really strong, strategic knowledge that has benefited me and various other people out there, not just in Scotland, the UK, but I know internationally. Your book, I wish it every success. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy.
I'll send you a copy, Frank.
And I'm sure everyone, after enjoying this conversation, and indeed all the other things that you're doing to get this message out there, will be thinking the same. There's some great stuff in this that will help people during this time and indeed in the years to come. Thank you so much, Annabelle.
Thank you, Frank. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
So, folks, that's it for another episode of Forever Great in Conversation. I hope you have enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. For all yous been watching on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. And for all of you listening in the podcast, again, thank you for downloading the episode. We will, of course, share links to Annabelle's pages and information about the July the 7th launched purchase in the synopsis. Until then, I was going to say stay alert, but don't stay alert, or do stay alert, but stay at home, stay safe, and look after yourself.